Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Overcaffeinated Dysfunctional. We're your hosts. I'm David.
I'm Josh.
Make sure to give us a follow on Spotify, YouTube, X, and TikTok. Click the link to the description below for all the links to our social media. Be sure to like and subscribe for all new episodes. Welcome back to episode 6. Today we got a special guest on today. Our best friend over here, Louie. Come on, Louie. Come on and say hello to our viewers here.
Evening, guys. I'm Louis. How you guys doing tonight?
All right. Well, Josh, what do we got? What are we going to be talking about today?
Well, first, happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
What we'll be talking about today is abortion and the efficacies of it all.
Boy, that's going to be a deep conversation there. But
Sounds
before
like a crowd pleaser.
Yeah, but before we start that conversation, we're going to introduce a new segment of our podcast called In the Hot Seat. During this segment, we'll answer one of our viewers' questions or react to a video. Each host and guest will have 60 seconds to answer the question and give their reaction.
Proposed a bill that I put out last session. It was very straightforward. This bill just says we will never have another government shutdown. Never. Every time we get to another moment like this, automatic funding kicks in, but here's the kicker. Members of Congress are in session 7 days a week, and we can't do anything but appropriations. We've got to do appropriations, and we've got to be here 7 days a week, House and Senate, until we actually get this solved. And that seems like a pretty reasonable thing. My Democratic colleagues have been bemoaning the House is not in session. If you would have voted for my bill last session, we would all be here right now negotiating this out. I had 57 votes on that last session, 57. We were 3 votes short of never, ever having a government shutdown again, never. So I'm going to bring it again and to say, let's end the potential of government shutdowns ever. And let's actually stay here and debate the issues and to be able to work things out like grown-ups.
So, David, this is Senator James Lankford. Obviously, he's a Republican. We'll start with you. What is your thoughts on his statement of never ever having a shutdown ever again? And you are now in the hot seat.
All right, Josh. Well, as you already know, that I believe we need a process so the government never shuts down. Our troops need to be paid. All federal workers need to stay in work. I think this is a good bill. I think it should be signed. Well, I will let you know, Josh, on October 23rd, this went up for a vote. 54 yeas, 45 nays. Guess who are the only people that voted for this were Republicans and John Fetterman, Democrat John Fetterman. It was the only Democrat that's crossed the aisle, and he has been the only Democrat who crossed the aisle during all these votes to reopen the government. I think we need to get this legislation signed immediately.
Nice job. You had a few seconds there to spare. So I'll go with that one to you, Louie. What is your response or thoughts on what Senator James Lankford put up?
Excuse me. I like the bill. It sounded authentic, but I don't think that bill would have ever passed because along with the bill not having the government shut down, he also wanted the Congress members to work 7 days a week, working on appropriations and things like that. And in my humble opinion, I don't think they're interested in working. So maybe they were banking on the fact that those other votes were not going to pass because usually in our system, the way things pass or don't pass is razor thin. So just 3 votes is pretty typical one way or the other. But I like what Dave had to say. We do need to have something in place where our troops and other essential staffing always gets paid all the time.
Yeah. All right, Josh. Well, you're in the hot seat now. 60 seconds begins now.
So I like what he said. And I believe government should be stuck in government chambers until the shutdown is ended. And backup funding, there should be emergency fund that the United States plans for every single year and puts that into a budgetary amount just in case. And if that funds don't get used, then we can use it elsewhere, put it into research, put it into whatever. But it does need to happen, and I agree that this bill does need to come to passing. And major props to John Fetterman for choosing country over party.
I think that's the first time you finished before 60 seconds. I'm just going to say that.
It's the 3rd time.
Okay. At least you're counting.
At least you're counting.
So as we sit here today, we're in 26 days of a government shutdown. 26 days.
Do you remember the numbers I had told you?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
It's $300 million to $1 billion per day that the government is shut down. So at this point, we are between $7.8 billion and $26 billion that is lost in government.
That is insane. So we're in day 26 of government shutdown. Our essential workers are losing money. People aren't eating. People can't afford things, and there is no agreement in sight. The Democrats will not come to the table and sign the same continuing resolution that they signed 13 times under Joe Biden. So, Lewis, what is your opinion on the Democrats coming to the table and voting for the same continuing resolution that they have signed 13 times under Joe Biden? Keeping in mind there is no partisan Republican BS in this bill. This is just pretty much saying whatever spending we're spending now, we're going to continue until we can come up to a resolution. I think the deadline was what, November? Josh, do you think it was
Correct.
like November? So they signed the same bill, and keep in mind the spending that they're going to this continuing resolution is the same spending under Joe Biden, and they signed this same resolution 13 times under Joe Biden. So why now don't they want to sign it and they want to fill it with political partisan BS health insurance for people who aren't legally in the country? So, in your opinion, should the Democrats come down and vote on this? And if not, what do you think the Democrats should do, or should the Republicans do to come to an agreement?
That is a lot. I think that Democrats should meet the Republicans halfway for sure and vote for some kind of spending. And almost like a response and a question, why can't they just appropriate some of the things, not like an all or nothing, right? Because if you're saying some people are hungry, some of our military people are still looking for food, which is terrible, that's like a slap in the face. It's like, how do we not have money for them, but we have money for everything else that we're spending on, that we hit the headlines every day? You know what I'm saying?
So there is the Congress and Senate had proposed spending bills for supporting troops and federal workers, giving them their pay. It
They
was
did great.
voted down in Congress
Ooh, that's no bueno.
by the same majority. So it was 54 to 45.
Yeah, so what we're telling our troops overseas that your
Yeah,
presence in war zones isn't worth our tax money is what they're saying to. So again,
yeah,
and all the Republicans are saying is come to the table, let's vote on a spending bill to open the government. Once the
right,
government's open, we will discuss further health care, et cetera, et cetera.
right. I 100% agree. That's definitely something I was not aware of. You guys know the more specifics, but 100% our staffing should be paramount. There should be nothing secondary to that. And anything that's not, there are troops overseas. How can we leave them behind? That's terrible.
Not only that, a new update SNAPS is going to run out of funding in 5 days, by the way.
Okay, so not only are our troops going hungry, a good portion of American people that are living off the SNAP program are going to start going hungry. Kids, children. I mean, the WIC program is almost running out. Josh, what is your opinion? What do you think we can do as a country or as the government in the whole to force the Democrats' hand in this? What do you think we can do?
Well, I'll start with a little bit of background here. So, just for background reference, we've had 13 CRs. This would be the 14th one, meaning each CR runs about 7-8 weeks. So, if you count back, we haven't had actual standard appropriations bill in almost 2 years, meaning we've been running off of these piecemeal, 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 instead of appropriating a yearly budget, which Congress is actually supposed to do. So, first things first, pass some sort of funding. Come together on that. Some sort of funding that gets you to the point where appropriations can make a yearly budget and then pass a yearly budget. Worry about the add ins you want in the appropriations budget when we have the time and you aren't putting people's livelihoods at risk.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the Speaker Johnson, he said that Schumer wants the top four. But it was the top four leaders of each party to get together in a room, in a back room, and come to a conclusion on this. Shouldn't this be deliberated on an open floor in front of everybody, not the four top
Backroom
leaders
thing is
deciding?
just sketchy to me. Yeah.
Well, that's what the speaker is trying to say. The speaker is trying to say we're done with this. This isn't the way that Congress and the Senate it was supposed to be had. The top four or top five weren't supposed to be doing backroom deals. And he
Now,
says,
I understand if they do a back room, like a quick outline, and then they bring it out to Congress and Congress fills in the blanks inside that outline and then Congress votes on that, that's different. But if you're just going to do some full bill behind closed doors between four people, you're completely turning into a totalitarianism. You're isolating the separation of powers into four people, which is not what our founders set forth.
well, that's what Chuck Schumer wants. He wants a backdoor deal. That's what he wants. I mean,
Something definitely is going on if they are saying out loud that they want something in a closed room, let's say, a closed door deal. And then how do we know that's even representing the people and their constituency?
No, this all needs to be done in the public eye. The whole purpose of what our founders put forth was that the people, we the people, are the governance. We allow ourselves to be governed.
no, I agree. And, and just before we go off to something else here, I just want to admit, like, yeah, these people are supposed to be representing the people in Congress, right? The people. They're supposed to be representing us. People in Senate, they're supposed to be representing the people, their constituents. At the end of the day, they're doing what gets them another vote at the box, and that's paying they're doing what their donors want. And this is the point of what the right is trying to say, that our government isn't what it was meant to be. We're supposed to be able to rely on these people, and we're not able to do that.
Well, the funny thing you mentioned that, and I want to mention this real quick. Voter registration has been going on in California. Over the past, I think it was like 8 months in California, they've had 86,000 people register to be an independent or no preference on party, 48,000 new registered Republicans, and 190 new registered Democrats. So, what they're actually doing is they're polarizing their base. 54% of Democrat voters are embarrassed to say they're a Democrat now.
I think they're getting hit hard because they're finding out that their elected leadership is not really even representing them, especially in a state like California, the major cities in California, because California is a mixed bag. There's a lot of other smaller cities that can go red. But in the majors, like the majors throughout the country, definitely they're not being represented properly. California is a good example of that because California's in a free fall right now. They already fell off the cliff and they haven't hit bottom yet. The people have dumped on California. It's pretty sad.
Yeah, and it looked more purple than it ever has in this past election, which is scary for the Democrat Party in general. And you would have thought they would have kind of taken a wake up call from that, but it doesn't look like they have. They took a hard turn to the left.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of blue states were turning purple in the last election. I mean, Trump won not only you know, the electoral college, but he also won the popular vote. So, I mean, that says a lot. That says a lot, you know? I mean,
Also, I'm here in New York City, and New York City went blue in the totality, but it shifted towards red in its biggest shift in like 15 years. You get what I'm trying to say? Though, even though it went blue, there was less blue and more red for the first time in like 15, 20 years.
That's crazy.
people are starting to wake up. Yeah, no, people are definitely starting to wake up. So,
So
all right. Yeah, go ahead, Josh. Sorry.
our next topic here is abortion. Abortion is a broad topic, and we'll get into further how everything plays a role and ties into it. But I think it's important that we get a base standing of where everybody is and then kind of divulge into that, ask the questions there. So,
Yeah,
David,
no,
I'm going to
I agree.
start with you. What is your belief on abortion and why?
All right. So before we start talking into our thoughts on abortion, so the definition of an abortion is the deliberate termination of a human pregnancy. So my opinion on that, so it's very controversial, right? This is a very controversial subject, and me personally, I am against abortions. I'm 100%. Well, okay, I'm not 100% against it. I'm against it. It should not be used as a form of birth control. Now, there's a few exceptions to an abortion that I believe that if the life of the mother and child is at risk, someone's life is at risk during this pregnancy, okay, terminate it. If it was a sexual assault case or a incest case where the bad outweighs the good, then yeah, I believe we should terminate it. In all other situations, though, terminating the life of another human being is egregious, and I mean, it's pretty much murder. You're killing the life of an innocent child, a person, someone who is made in the face of God. We're all made in the face of God. You're terminating, you know, that one little person in that womb has one set of DNA and one set of fingerprints that will never ever ever be the same. So me, 100%, I'm 100% against it, unless those exceptions, which I stated previously. Going to Louis here. Louis, what is your opinion on abortions and where do you stand?
I am not that strict. I come from a background where I do believe women have a right to choose up to a certain point. I want to piggyback on what you said. Rape, incest, crime, trauma, child abuse, or any kind of abuse, 100%, it should be legal. And any late term pregnancy is that's where the meat of the argument is. But as far as a blanket statement, I think not allowing abortion based on anything religious kind of gets a little muddy because we're supposed to keep our laws separate from our religious views. And I do believe that women having the right to choose need to do it responsibly, but I don't have the exact answer. But to pick a side, I would say I would rather leave abortion legal.
All right, and Josh, what do you think here?
So, my end of it, I am against abortion as a whole. Now, medical necessity, rape, incest, life of the mother, those I can agree with, but I'm a lot like you in this sense, David, of I don't believe it should be used as a form of birth control. I believe in the sanctity and the holiness of the womb and the child that is developing in the womb. So, that is in a quick excerpt, that is my quick answer to that. Now, my one question is, and you're going to question why I'm asking this, where do we do, well, one, are we sure it's if someone's political beliefs align with their religious beliefs, is it a mixing of religious and state? And two, where do we get our moral and ethical compasses from?
Yeah, so I'll weigh in here first. So your morals and what you believe is right and wrong, right? It has to come from somewhere, and you're taught that from somewhere. But where is it? Where does it ultimately come down from? It comes down from your faith, right? The way that you should live, right? The way that God intended you to, whether it was Jesus Christ or whether it was Allah or any kind of belief, right? It all stems down to your faith and what you believe in. And what was the second part of your question there, Josh? I have short-term memory. I'm sorry.
So the second part of it was if a person believes that abortion should be illegal or legal based on faith and puts forth a policy suggestion based on faith, is that a mixing of state and religion?
That's a hard one right there. I think anytime I think the law should be written, this is how it's gonna be. Period. At the end, we vote on it at the end of the day. We should not start writing our laws to say if you are a Christian, we're gonna allow you to have an abortion because the Bible tells you to. Just say it did, right? That's just an example. And then we're gonna say if you're say Muslim, you can't have an abortion because that your faith doesn't allow that. I think that's the government putting in their hands in the pocket too much, and that's we are all given the same rights no matter our religion. So I think when you start turning laws to fit certain narratives and fit certain religions, that's when the rights for everybody, that's when you start violating that clause. The rights for everyone has the same rights. So I don't think we should be writing laws per religion. That's a bad start, and that's a bad way for government overreach.
So would you consider it the same way? And these questions apply to you, Louis, as well, and feel free to answer whenever you want to. Would you consider that the same way as if I'm a senator and a bill comes up saying abortion will be made illegal across the board except for medical necessity, rape, or the life of the mother, and I vote for it based on me being a Christian? Am I blurring the lines of religion and state?
Yes. Because you're stating it in your belief. You're saying as a Christian, right there, first step. So I like that people want to protect the babies, but sometimes the parent, it's almost like you have to paint the whole picture, not just specifically the baby. So the baby is special, I agree. And I did say that I think that women should have the right to choose, but there's also a broader scope because that parent, soon to be, may or may not be able to take care of the child and may not be able or may have access to childcare. And it might not be so much a religious or irresponsible or responsible thing. They may not be able to have the child knowing, maybe in future months that child is out of reach, which I'm concerned about too. Because sometimes it may not be specifically having the child. It's like what happens after the child is born.
Yeah, so I disagree here. So I believe when say you're a senator, in Josh's thing where he said he was a senator and he's making his vote based off of his moral aspect. I think we all make our decisions based off a moral aspect. I think by Josh being a senator and voting yes or no on this abortion bill, that's not where you're blurring the line of separation of church and state, because Josh isn't enacting rules limiting your right to religion. He's not saying I'm voting no and everyone because I'm a Christian and this is what the Christian Bible says. No, he's saying my morals tell me no, this is not okay. Senators vote this way every day. But the separation of church and state, it was the legal doctrine that prohibited the government from establishing a religion for the state or prohibiting prohibiting people or giving people the free exercise of religion. That's not making a decision based off your own moral calculations, which would stem from faith in most aspects, right? Most people's morals come from faith, and I don't think you making a decision based off your faith is blurring the line with church and state. I just disagree with that completely.
Making
So if
a faithful. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And I was just going to rephrase it in a different way. If I propose a bill based on my morals, I believe abortion is wrong, and obviously that's background founded by me being a Christian, is that also blurring the lines because I proposed a bill saying no more abortions across the board?
It's good that I think you're using the faith to try to help out and you believe in it, which is noble. So, but it's like if it's something that's going to blanket the country, you're also going to impose a rule to people who are not Christian. And you're also going to, when you say as a Christian, like it's also getting the ears up for the Christian vote. So you're also setting yourself up for future votes as well. And I think that the people who identify as Christians, rather, they're going to go, okay, well, I like what he's saying. He doesn't want abortions. He's into his faith and stuff like that. But you're also leaving a segment of the country out that don't identify as practicing Christians, or they're just not Christians at all.
Yeah, but you got to remember though. Also, I mean, for instance, then why is Christmas a federal holiday when it's a Christian-based holiday? So is having Christmas being a federal holiday, is that a blur of church and state as well? I mean, with that thought process there, I mean, kind of right.
Technically.
But I mean, like being a Christian,
terms, yes.
yeah. But I mean, being a Christian and making bills that would put a blanket over the country, right? Maybe that same law that you're enacting, right? Say you're looking to appeal Roe versus Wade, which was already appealed, but you make this law trying to, overwrite that law saying that you're okay to have an abortion. So say you make a law, no abortions, period, the end, and it goes into a vote. Because you're a Christian doesn't mean that you're blurring the line between church and state. You're writing a law based off your morals, which stem from religion. I just don't think that church and state are connected there. I just think it's two different things, and you're following what you morally believe. I mean, that's what I think.
Yeah,
What's your thoughts, Josh?
I don't think it is a blur of church and state if you're going off your moral compass and your moral compass is telling you, no, I need to propose this bill, or yes, I need to propose it, or yes, I need to vote for it, or no, I need to decline it. The other thing I look at is, okay, if we know there is an inherent good in evil, right, where does that good and evil come from? Because it isn't just, if we go back to Stone Age times, it wasn't a defined principle. There was no such thing as really good and evil. So where did we develop this compass to tell us, hey, that person murdering over there is bad. That person giving to the poor over there is good. So I think finding that bedrock of where did the moral and efficacy come from? Where was it founded? Where is it rooted? And then going from there to find the moral and ethical question to each and every problem we have in this country. And that includes abortion as an overall topic. Now, here's the other thing I've heard. It's women's bodies, government shouldn't be involved. Now, the biggest thing I see is then why did we allow the progressive movement to get involved? And there's substantial proof showing that the progressives have gotten more involved in our lives as time has progressed, especially since the early 20th century. Woodrow Wilson was one of the big promoters of the Progressive Party. And I quote, he said, "We need modern day solutions." And then in another quote, he said when he won the New Jersey governorship, "I am going to be the most unconstitutional governor." And part of his thing was when reading the Declaration of Independence, you need to ignore the preface. The preface was what the country was made for. The remainder was the grievances against the king. Now, if you look at FDR said that the American people have now accepted a second Bill of Rights. We never, as an American people, voted on it, meaning that he inherently changed the system. Well, how did he inherently change the system? The New Deal is what changed our system. Lyndon B. Johnson, when he wrote the Great Society Bill, said that he does not want the American people relying on a God. He wants them relying on the American government for all their necessity. Lyndon B. Johnson was a Democrat president. So that means in his Great Society Bill, and you see it time and time again, one of his test cities was Detroit. He wanted the American people to rely on the government. Well, that means every happenings of every people's lives. So how did women's body become involved in U.S. government politics? There's our layout. The progressives allowed, and we allowed the progressives to involve everyday life by them wanting to control every aspect.
No, I agree. And like you said, I think you said this in the last podcast, we're turning into a welfare state. Everyone's relying on the government. But here's the problem with it's her body, her choice, right? Yeah, it's her body, but she's murdering another person. She's murdering another person. When you abort, science says that life begins at conception. So at conception, a human is made. It's not viable to live outside the womb, but it's still a person. A person still made in the face of God, same person. So any thoughts there, Lou?
Yeah, I mean, my most accurate thought is that this is never an easy topic because, on one hand, you have Christianity and morals, like you said. I mean, you're not wrong, Dave. You're not wrong. But then on the other hand, as America identifies itself, it identifies itself with freedom. So you have that freedom to make choices that can be ugly sometimes. That's the whole point of being an American. It's like you have that right to do something that might go against the grain or might not seem publicly popular. And just to tell you that Lyndon B. Johnson bill, that was quite a setup. But that's not really getting off topic. But as far as abortion, definitely, if it's going back to the first example, like if Josh said, as a Christian, this is what I believe in, he's open about it, he's being honest, this is his background, this is what he wants to put forward, maybe that might work because the country is predominantly Christian or some denomination of Christian. But the second part is, which the government hasn't done, is enacted the child care policy, which I had mentioned earlier. Definitely, if you want to it's like a two-part stuff, right? Because you and I were always getting older. We have heartbeats. We have a heartbeat at conception. We have a heartbeat now. And if, let's say, parent A and B wanted to, perform an abortion for whatever the reasons were, and then now they are unable to, they comply, they have the child, and now for whatever reason they can't take care of the child, they're in a spot. You see what I'm saying? So that's more like now you don't have the freedom to abort. Now you have to have the child. And it's almost like punishment that you're having the child. And that's no way to start a family. So that would be the little tidbit I would add to that.
Right. So going back to what you said in the beginning there, you said that you have the right, living in America and living as an American, you have the right to have an abortion, right? That's what you said?
In my view, yeah.
Okay, but the problem with being free in America, right? Being free in America, you still can't go over Josh's house and murder him. It's the same thing. You can't go down the street and hit someone with your car. It's the same thing. You can't go rob the bank down the road. It's the same thing. Like, yeah, we're free, right? We're free to we have the freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, freedom of this, freedom of that. But we still have to have laws. We still have to have a guideline in which we live our everyday life. And I think the taking of life of innocent children is something that should not be happening. It just should not be happening. So in 1973, the Supreme Court decision, Roe versus Wade, established a woman's constitutional right to an abortion based on the right to privacy under the 14th Amendment. So Josh, what do you think? What is your thought about this? We'll start there. Roe versus Wade.
I want to backtrack a little bit.
Okay, backtrack a little bit. Cancel, alt, delete.
Control, alt, delete. Louis, and this is for you, and David can answer. So, in most honest terms, wouldn't the parents, shouldn't they take the responsibility, knowing that they're going to engage in something that could have consequences such as having a child, take the prior steps to engage the best chances of not having said child? So sexual protection in some form, whether it's birth control, condoms, you name it. And then two, what is your stance as far as, does the biological soon-to-be father have a choice in the matter with the woman, or is it all the woman's choice?
Ooh, this steak's got a lot of meat. So, yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, yes, a responsible adult should have planned better when he is, doing his thing with a woman. However, that's assuming he's responsible. Now, we can actually produce children as young as 15, 16 years old. Three juniors in high school can get together, have a good night, 16-year-old's pregnant. You can be in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. You have a night out, one too many drinks, people hook up, and next day, somebody's pregnant. So to answer your question specifically, yeah, they should be prepared. Absolutely. You're doing something that, can have permanent results, let's say, or a permanent reaction. They should be prepared. But that's assuming that those people are responsible in the first place, which we know most people are not. Because if you're in college, you're not responsible for the most part. And if you're especially in high school, these children nowadays are left alone. Parents need to work, or they find a way to sneak around, and they're able to do things that they don't even know how permanent their decisions are. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just want to make sure I answered your question. The preparation part, and I believe, I'm sorry, the preparation part, yep, that's correct. But we're assuming that they're going to be responsible, which is not necessarily the case. It's a little bit subjective, you know? That's all. I'm sorry, I forgot that last part.
The last part was, do you believe it is 100% the woman's choice once she finds out she's pregnant? Or does the father or should the father have some say inside of whether or not the abortion happens?
So this is real tough because that goes into legalities. How does the court view a woman's privacy and the father's role in raising the child? And it's tough because I
And
think as it stands right now, if a woman wants to abort the child, the father does not have a say.
no, and the reason
And
I ask this is because
yeah,
if we're going to say woman has 100% overall decision on having birth, should we alter our after birth laws to reflect that decision? Meaning, if somebody goes, has a baby, and then takes the father to court for child support, shouldn't that father be no longer liable for the child support? Now, I'm not arguing for that. I'm just ethicality.
I know what you're
Shouldn't
saying.
he
Yep,
no
yep.
longer be liable for the child support because it happened or the decision was made without his prior input?
You raise a fantastic point. And but I think based following that logic, the father should not be responsible because it was never his decision to make. Then that goes into another part of it. If the woman decides to have the child or not, that's almost admitting that it's only a one party system, that the father is not really involved in the first place. There should be a two-part system too, because if you're not 18, again, in some rare cases under 15, but let's say 14, 15, 16, 17, that child is not even considered an adult. That she shouldn't be making that decision on her own in the first place because she, legally speaking, doesn't even have the right to make those decisions because she's not speaking for herself. She's a minor.
Yeah. Now that does tie into, so if we're going to allow parents to restrict a minor to have a child, what's the difference between the parents restricting and the government?
You know, I have to give that some thought.
You can come back to it anytime. It's not a pressing
Yeah, no,
question.
this is fantastic. I'll get back to you.
Okay, so
What's your inputs there, David?
well,
Anything too?
well, yeah. Well, here's my problem with the whole abortion thing. Anyways, I understand we're talking about, well, maybe we can't afford to support this child, right? We can't afford it, or maybe he doesn't want it, she doesn't want it. At the end of the day, when you walk into a bedroom and you pull your pants down, you are liable, 100% liable. Why all of a sudden, because you aren't in the right financial decision, we just gonna go ahead and murder the child? It's unnecessary. If you go rob a bank tomorrow, you're gonna come back and you're still gonna be liable. You're still gonna end up in prison for that, right? So why, Lou, why is it okay for, in the situation of having a child and not being prepared for that, why is it okay to not deal with the after consequences, but in a situation with like robbing a bank or murdering somebody else, should we be held liable for that?
Well, because it's just a different context. When you're conceiving a child, that's not a crime, right? When you rob a bank, it's a crime right away. So when you're aborting a child, it depends on how the wording is in court because they're saying that it's the woman's privacy, it's her body. The government shouldn't be involved.
No, I agree. But in your opinion, the act of aborting a child is what I would classify as murder. You're terminating the life of an unborn child. He's still a living human. So why should we be, all right, here let's put it this way. If you personally murder a pregnant woman, you get charged with a double murder. You get
That's
charged with the murder
correct.
of the mother and a murder of the unborn child. So
Right.
why is it okay for you murdering a pregnant woman to get charged with double murder, but a woman terminating her pregnancy is not considered murder, isn't classified as murder? It's still the killing of a person. It's still a living person.
I don't know. But I do like that there's an inconsistency there because if it's external, it's murder, but if it's internal, it's not. So that's a good inconsistency. I don't know the exact reason, but I would say if the woman has to carry the child to term, then there has to be childcare available to her. Just like, for example, let me give you a lighter example. Like if you get a parking ticket
So
or if you get
before you go on there, so you're saying there has to be childcare. So who is responsible for providing that childcare?
that would be the parents first. But like in any other government situation, if they can prove to the government they are unable, but they're stuck with that situation because they have the freedom to still do those acts, then there has to be a program in place to help them out. They can't just allow the child because then, hold on, because what happens is if you say, John and Jane, they have a child, They went to the government. They said, "Hey, I can't afford this child. It's going to be a whatever hardship." If the government goes, kick rocks, tough, you shouldn't have done it. That's in a way saying that they didn't have the freedom to do that in the first place because they weren't financially secure, which also muddies into like, well, who determines that? Because now you're getting into the weeds of like, how is your economical status in your family home? And then if I lose my job, all right, abortion aside, if I lose my job, I can go to the government and get unemployment and get SNAP and food stamps. So I can do that and it's not required of me. I could just stay unemployed. But there's an option there that we all pay into. The same way, like if I'm saying if we're going to tell our citizens that you have to have that child because that's the way the law of the land is now laid out, then if they're telling you we cannot do this, it is what it is. There should be something in place to allow that child to grow because now the only person that's going to really suffer is the child. The
Well,
child's going to come to terms to broke parents.
but there's an alternate route of, adoption. If you can't afford the child, send it out for adoption. And, sexual intercourse was made to produce human. It wasn't made for human pleasure. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if you can't, I know
I
we
don't think that's
use,
going to fly, bro. Not in America.
yeah, but
To do it
but
for
why?
procreation. Good luck.
No, I know, but why is the American taxpayer now liable to you can't use a condom or use birth control? Why is the American taxpayer now? Why is the American taxpayer the one footing the bill now?
Well, everybody has a different story. Not every path is the same. Some parents are broke. That's just the way life is. Not every person in America's got money.
What's
You
your
know what I'm
opinion,
saying?
Josh?
So I think if there were a law put in place saying there will be no more abortions for just general abortions, it's a two-parter. I understand where Louis saying what he's saying, but I also see the point of where David is saying of why is the American taxpayer now funding a program for someone else's irresponsibility, because essentially that's what it is. If you have a child and you're not intending to, there are certain situations where birth control actions don't work, and that's a different story. But the irresponsibility of not taking the proper steps prior to help prevent it's kind of like if you went and or someone went and robbed a bank, and then I had to go to jail for that person in a sense, because now we're paying for their irresponsibility. Yes, we know they were irresponsible and they're going to pay the time too, but hey Josh, you've also got to now go pay the time as well. So I don't believe the American taxpayer necessarily should be on the hook for it, but I also understand not making the child pay for something they didn't do. So whether that looks like, hey, maybe we open up schools, and this is another topic we can get into further on, the education system, maybe get them into schools sooner so that they start learning growth, and then parents can have full-time jobs and they're tax paying, which pays for their kids to go to that said schools. Now, I mean, that's kind of where I physically stand on it overall. Now, I think important step we missed was, where does all of this lie? We keep mentioning different segments of this where it's, rape, incest, medical necessity, life of the mother, without kind of giving the defined statistics to give an overall greater weight and value of this topic. So for last year was 1,038,100 provided abortions. Now, inside of that, 57% of it was their first time, 24% was their second, 11% was their third, and the 8% was fourth or more. Inside of that, the statistics get broken down further. 0.4% were due to rape and incest. 0.3% was due to risk to the mother's life or a major bodily function. 2.2% other physical health concerns, 1.2% abnormality in the unborn baby, and 95.9% elective and unspecified reasoning. So, in the greater scheme of thing, if let's say we don't pass a bill that just strictly bans abortion, what would be the thoughts and the processes on, hey, if you've started, you're now going into 3 or more, which would eliminate 19% of these numbers. What would be the thoughts on that? Obviously, excluding the first half of the segment, if it's the 95.9% group and you're on your third or more abortions, is there something we can do there to help save possible lives?
I think it sounds like those individuals are being irresponsible and they're taking advantage of the system, the abortion availability. But as of right now, that would be legal in certain states. But they, just playing devil's advocate, they might not view having an abortion right away or whatever term as murder. It's just their view. You know, everybody has a different view. And that's where I would go with the 19% on, was it the lower percent with having three or more. That definitely sounds like they are promiscuous. They like doing things without contraception, and or because nothing's ever statistically 100 or 0, they've used contraception and it failed. IUDs failed. There was a funny story floating around on social media where a baby was born with an IUD in the baby's hand. So that happened. I mean, it wasn't aborted, but you know what I mean? Like she got pregnant and had the kid with protection. So I would say definitely with those, there needs to be better education and just kind of slow down with life has other things to offer than just, bumping uglies in the night.
What's your thoughts? Should we, if we don't do a generalized ban, should we go with a segmented ban for the first portion? So if you've had three or more, instead of it being a free form of healthcare, now you have to pay a $250 copay unless you can prove that you're using some form of contraception.
I like that. I like that. I just worry that if we do value the baby's lives, then it would be consistent in my view to have something protecting the child when the child's born. So the parents should 100% be responsible. But if they can't be for whatever reason, that doesn't mean that having the taxpayers burden the fit is a bad thing, because that is still consistent with the view of making the child first. If the child's first, little Timmy's born, then consistent with making sure Timmy stays alive would mean that you have a program in place to allow Timmy to have some food and a shelter somewhere.
Yeah, but these programs are already in place though. We already have Section 8 programs which house with housing. We already have food stamps, SNAP. We already have financial aid that, if you have a child and you live under the poverty line, the government's giving you cash benefits. I mean, we have the WIC program for mothers with infants for milk and formula and stuff like that. So I think we already are footing the bill, and I just don't think that because, if you murdered somebody, the federal government's not paying your lawyer fees. So I mean, and that's the same situation we end up with in the same situation with this. So, yeah. So that's what I think about. And to be quite frank with you, if I had my own government and I ran, I was a leader of David's government here and David's world, I think, abortions would be outlawed unless the life of the mother, child, rape, incest, etc. I just think 95.1% of those people were having an abortion. Why? Because they want to?
Now, a burning question and a big one because Louis brought it up: minors, teen pregnancies. Should teen pregnancies be excluded? If we were to do a nationwide ban on abortions, should teen pregnancies be excluded from this bill?
Because they're not even adults. They can't even speak for themselves, technically. The mothers and fathers of those said teenagers need to get involved. And it should be a case-by-case basis. You never know.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah, I think
teenagers
so.
have the means and they want it. They're just a little young. And everybody has different values. Like some people want to have kids young. It just works out for them. There's a million different scenarios.
Yeah, I think something like that would need to be looked at case by case. But I mean, what are the parameters around that? Was it a peer quote boyfriend? I mean, what are the parameters around it? What are the details? And do you really have to sit down and look at it? But I mean, the percentage of abortions that are under the age of 18, I'm sure, are very low compared to the vast majority.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I would say we could put in an exclusion that would look at a case by case basis, just
Yeah,
for that
sure.
instance of, if you're 16, and especially if you're 16 or under, you may not have intended for that said result.
That's right.
And may not have known that result could have happened, because Lord knows our education system is definitely, as a holistic item, is failing.
Yeah,
So
they're definitely taking things away from us for education purposes, so to speak. Yeah, I agree. At least here in New York City, you could pass your courses in the public school system based on effort. You don't even actually have to learn something, which is, in my humble view, ridiculous. You got to know it, whatever said subject.
Yeah. So in 1973, the Supreme Court decision on Roe versus Wade established that women's constitutional right to an abortion based on the right to privacy under the 14th Amendment. The ruling was created a trimester framework allowing for increasing state regulation as a pregnancy progressed, prohibiting outright bans in the first trimester. The ruling was overturned by the court in 2022 in Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization. And what that did was return the authority of abortions to the states to regulate. So in your own opinion, do you think the overturning of Roe v. Wade was a good or bad thing, and why?
I believe it was a good thing. And the reason why I say this is because you return the power to the states. Now, what happens in the states versus in federal government, and I don't think people understand this. So the federal government operates a lot like the election does. If you get 271 electoral votes for the president, who wins? The president that got the 271 marker. Now, that it is not a true representation of the population because it is not won by the popular vote. Guess what is won by the popular vote? Your state politics. Your state politics does not go off of a redistricting map or a map that moves around. It goes off of the people inside of the state who voted and how many people in that state voted. So if you have a state with 450 million people in it, 251 million people vote to have legal abortions, it's legal in that state. Now, it might be inconvenient if your state doesn't have an abortion and then there's a few other states around you that doesn't have an abortion and you have to drive a far distance to get one. But it is a fair setup that way. You have more power as a people, and our founders set it up that way. The original establishment of our government was your municipality had the most power, your state had a little bit less, and your federal government had less than the municipality and the state put together. So the federal government shouldn't be dealing in our day to day lives. We should be seeing more of Massachusetts state politics, New York state politics, Alabama state politics. We shouldn't be so federalized.
Like your point. I didn't think I like it as much, but I like it. You're 100% right. I know. I'm so serious. Like the way you framed it was very, very nice, informative. Dave, I think Josh has a good point that municipalities definitely represent their constituency more accurately than the federal government does. 100%.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with it, and I think the overturning of Roe v. Wade was a good thing. It, put the power back in the people at the end of the day. I mean, and to give the people in the states what based because what we believe in the Northeast, they definitely don't believe in out west or down south. So you give the people of the states that they're in what they believe in. Like I said, all because the Northeast or all because blue states think they should be allowed to have abortions whenever they want to. Doesn't mean that red states think the same way. And giving the people what they want and putting the power back in the people and limiting government is what we need to do.
I actually like that. I think that's a good point. And it allows
So with
people to
our
have that sense of freedom because they can flex their options.
Yes, and if you want a policy change, and this is what I don't understand lately, is people complain about the situation in this country or in their states, but aren't vocal. Especially if it's a state issue or a state ran issue, go out there, be civically engaged. You want somebody else to see your point of view and agree with you, go out there informative with the facts, do a peaceful protest, do a peaceful sit down, talk with other people, talk with city leaders, talk with state leaders, call your state reps, be there, talk to them, and be engaging. Nobody's going to listen to someone that doesn't talk
Yeah, yeah,
or that doesn't talk with fact based opinions.
yeah. And there's more people in this country that don't vote than that do vote.
You know what I call the ballot?
What's that?
Do you remember what I call the ballot?
I don't remember.
The ballot is your bitch ticket.
You bitch ticket. That's it. Yeah,
So
your
I
ticket to
believe
bitch.
if you don't vote, you don't have a bitch ticket. You can't say what's
True
going
that.
on in the country. Or
Point.
you
I like that.
can, but I'm not going to listen to you because
Yeah.
if you're not voting to make a change or doing something to make a change, why should I listen to you? Obviously, you're just looking for clickbait or you're obviously just looking for someone just to pay attention to you because you're not making any action.
Piggybacking, if 50% of the American electorate votes, it'll be pandemonium. You're talking about over 100 million people voting on one day. I don't think we even have the infrastructure for that.
I believe, and this is going into elections, but I believe we should have a holiday week where businesses have to give one day of the week. Businesses have to shut down and allow people the day to vote and be civically engaged. No
Yeah, but
ifs, ands, or buts about it.
I
Right
think the
on.
process we have now. I think the process we have now allows for that. I mean, they're open from sunrise to sunset every day. I mean,
Yeah, but if you're an oil rigger who can't come off of an oil rig,
all right, we have mail-in ballots. We have voting by proxy. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of other.
there is a lot of options, but I still believe it needs to be a holiday. Allow people the utmost opportunity. Give them absolutely no excuse. Why
They
didn't you
still won't-
vote? Well,
They
I didn't have time. What do you mean? There's a holiday week.
they still won't vote. They still won't vote.
Yes, but you might
That-
see an increase in votership.
They'll be like incentivized, or they get, if they prove that they voted, then they get overtime or something like that, or an extra day's pay, straight time. But
Or use that
most,
to get a day off from your employer. If you can show them, hey, here's my little ballot sticker.
and it
You
definitely
got the day
needs
off for
not,
going and voting.
yeah, and it can't be on a damn Tuesday or whatever it is, Thursday, because
Well, that's why
election
you give
day,
the holiday week.
yeah, that if nothing else, make it a weekend where most people then not have the time off. It's not a perfect system, but it's a start. Because election day's on a weekday.
I think that is the most inclusive message of the United States. It's not perfect, but it's a start.
Yeah. And every which way we look, it's not perfect, but
You
Yeah,
got to start somewhere.
little paint and stain will make it what it ain't.
yeah. I really like the way you framed that when you said it's power back to the states. They made it seem like it was such a terror, and I like the way you said that. Like if these municipalities well, not like's a little strong in this case, but if they tolerate and allow abortions, that's what the people asked for. And if other said state doesn't, that's what the people asked for. And the federal government stays out of it. They're washing their hands of that. So I like that point. Yeah, I do. I do like that point.
Well, that's the problem with the media these days, right? So they're like, oh no, they overturned Roe v. Wade. They're banning abortion. It's misinformation. That's not what they did. What they did was they gave the power back to the states. That's what happened.
Yeah. Ah,
Yeah.
that was good.
And if you
That
don't
was
like
pretty
what's
good.
going on in your state, like I said, vote it out.
Yeah.
Get the people
And
out to vote and vote for it.
you need the masses because statistically, the higher density cities and states, that each individual vote has less power by percentage. If you put it into like a math equation, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the more population you have, yes, the smaller your vote technically counts.
Right.
But that is also, again, that leads into elections, so I'll keep that one off to the side for now. But
Yeah, just to put a
that
pin
is
on
why
it.
it's
Yeah.
important to get information out there. And if you have facts on it, bring up those facts. Facts is what's going to sway people. If you can say, I can show murder is wrong, XYZ, someone is more likely to believe you and have a change of mind than if you go, I believe murder's wrong. What's your
Right.
proof? Oh, I just believe it.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, that's cool. That's your opinion now. There's no fact-based setup to show that you're right or what you're saying is right. But that's why in civic engagement and
Mhm.
making sure you're posting correct information. You're not going out there and just calling someone something just to call them something.
Yeah.
So that's where personal integrity ties into it, personal
A little sincerity.
respect, having sincerity.
Another point I totally missed. We're three guys. We're three guys.
You can't assume that I'm a guy, Lewis. It's 2025.
I sorry, I didn't mean to assume your identities. Person, they, them.
Caesar.
But yeah, but seriously, I'm so sorry. Like, we got to get women in this conversation because they're the ones who are going to be more affected by these abortion rules more than us.
I agree and disagree though, because yes, right, women obviously have a say in this, but at the end of the day, it's right or wrong. It's right or wrong. What do you believe in personally?
Well, not only that, at any point in given time, we can be the possible fathers of said fictional or future children. So that all ties back to, well, then does the father have a right to say something and input in the decision of an abortion? So if we're going to completely exclude the male voices and the male ideology on the issue, then that means the entire encapsulation minus the current in person event of it happening should not include law based restrictions on men. So if the women or females of the world are going to say, well, men don't have a right to speak on it, then now moves into the question of, okay, if you're going to exclude male voices and it's going to be 100% your decision, if you go to term with this child, that father is no longer responsible.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
So it's a double edged sword. It's like me going and saying, okay, if you don't own guns, then you don't have the right to say what happens with gun control and gun policy.
Okay, so here's a thought process for you. So how about this? How about if you go and get an abortion and the father doesn't agree with it? They make you sign this paperwork that says, father signature here, mother signature here for the abortion. If the father doesn't sign that paper, that should make them legally not responsible for that child. What do you think about that?
I mean, it doesn't work in New York because if you file a motion to have a paternity test, he's got to show up. They'll keep looking for him.
Yeah, but what I'm
They'll
saying is, yeah, but what I'm saying is, this is a legally binding document that if he doesn't sign that paper, and she does have the child or whatever. Well, no, that's kind of backwards. That wouldn't work, obviously. Never mind. Take that
hold
out of
up.
there.
No, it's okay. But like also, we're just ideas. Also, we're assuming that the mother knows the father. Like what we mentioned before, there's a lot of women out there that want to have just as much fun as the guys do, and they might not know who the father is. There is nothing at all air wherever that it says the woman needs to know who the father is, and there's nothing preventing a woman from being out there, get Madrid. So then what do you do?
So then a question that it raises with me is, let's say the woman does not know who the father is. The woman goes and gets a paternity test and finds out who the bio father is. Now, obviously, the father has an option to become responsible and want to be in the child's life. And I believe if you want to be in the child's life, that requires you to be 100% in the game, so to speak. You don't have to go and marry the woman, but you have to be there for the child to rely on. You have to be there in person, fiscally, mentally, and teach them right from wrong, and also give them everything that they need to grow up a decent life. But if the father says, I didn't know, and wouldn't have wanted the child to begin with, what is the role in the father's, or what would be the role in that situation? Would the father be responsible still?
Yeah, he would be. Yeah,
So, but if we were to make a law that says the father is no longer responsible if the woman 100% decides on her own, wouldn't that negate that point?
I
Yeah.
think then you're gonna end up with a bunch of single mothers who can't afford anything.
Yes, and again, I'm not advocating for this by any means. I'm just bringing up the questions that follow, because there is some portions of it that do follow.
I think
It's not just one person's life that's affected, it's two
right, or three. And then
or three.
if if that's the case where there's a lot of questions, then I feel like a politician or a lawmaker might not want to put a blanket law in place because there is too many variables. Like, because before it becomes a law, you have to have the arguments, right? You have to bring it to the floor as a bill, and then you have to argue your case for the bill, support or yay or nay. And then if there's so many different variables, it might be just not morally, but politically, it just might be tough to pass because of the friction involved in it. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Because now, even though we're talking morally, and you and I, we feel passionately and sincerely about the life of the child, but from the senator or congressman's point of view, the reality is it's also a career move. Like he has to set up his argument to keep himself in office, and he doesn't want to set up a bill that he knows is going to fail. You get what I'm saying, or she? But you know what I mean? Like there's also like almost like a setup to it. It might be too tough.
So, as we get close and winding down in this, one thing I wrote down as we were going through is put yourselves in the perspective of a lawmaker. Let's say you right now are a lawmaker in Congress proposed with this question. One, do you or do you not, or do you write a bill in support of abortion or banning abortion? If so, how would your bill be proposed, and or how would you set your bill up to help in certain situations of pregnancies, abortions, etc.? So how would you lay your bill out as a grand scheme, 10,000-foot view, if you were the lawmaker today? And we'll start with Louis on this one.
Well, my background is, here in New York. I would I would hope if I'm in the situation where I am a congressman, I would leave it up to the people who told me how their views are laid out. Like I told you, I'm a little bit more free spirited with abortion. I kind of lean towards that idea of the trimester thing from the 1970s. And if my district or if my city, state, most of them that appeared to vote and voiced their view said we want abortion on the table. We don't want it to be restricted. I would have to vote in favor of that, or compose a bill that allows people the option to have an abortion with certain parameters. Like I like the way they had it in the 70s. If it's the first trimester where it's smaller organism, that might be okay if the people agree on it because it's still America in my view, the old 70s view. But if it comes to a point where the baby's kind of developed, it could survive on its own type of deal, very close to term, then it is what it is. You got to have the baby, and we'll set you up another way. So
Okay, David,
what I'm saying is the
what
trimester
would
thing.
your bill look like? I gotcha.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think my opinion has changed on this, and I don't think it's going to. Abortion is inherently wrong. It's the taking of a life is wrong. The murdering of an innocent child that was made in the face of God is wrong. It is completely wrong. So if I were to lay out this 18-story-foot bill, it would just say it would be easy. No recreation abortions. Abortions under certain parameters, like life of the child, the mother. I mean, like, again, why are we killing innocent children? And that's how I would say. That's what I would say. I would say it's wrong. We should be doing this. It's murder. It's murder. But still, it's murdering of an unborn child. Abortion's okay if sexually assaulted, life of the mother of the child, incest, etc., etc. That's what I think.
So if I was the lawmaker today making a bill, obviously I would listen to my constituency. Now, where I live, this constituency would vote more towards the no abortion, and that's where I believe as well. Now, there would be stipulations built into the bill. Obviously, the 4.1% of that 100% under there would be protected, as should be. Nobody should have to live with, oh, this might kill me, or I might have trauma come out of this abortion via rape or incest. Now, for the 95.9% that did it recreationally, it would be a matter of ensuring that everybody has equal access to contraceptives in some way, shape, or form, and also ensuring that all schools are providing the correct information and education. And maybe even start this talk sooner in schools, depending. But it would be a ban of abortions just because you want one.
Yeah, just to add there, under what would be my bill, I'm only targeting that 95.1% of people. If you're going to die or your child is going to die based off you having that child, then no, you would be protected under that bill, right? The exceptions, life of the mother of the child. But I'm looking to target that 95.1% of recreational abortions. It's wrong. 95.1% of aren't done because life of the mother of the child, aren't done because of rape or incest. They're done because either you've had too much fun, you don't know who the father is, you just don't care, you never use birth control, contraceptives. At the end of the day, that 95.1% of those abortions were done based off of what? That's what I would be targeting, not the people who actually need it. It's the 95.1% of abortions should not be recreationally killing our children. It's wrong, and it's morally wrong, ethically wrong. It's wrong. It's 100% wrong.
Yeah. That's a tough one. I feel like because to write a bill, it's not as simple as moral. You got to think about your political career. You know what I'm saying? Like, because
Well,
let's
I also
backtrack that, all right? So let's say let's do Dave's bill, right? Morally wrong, you can't do it. But now you're saying you're gonna force adults to use contraception, which they may not want to use. You know what I'm saying? Now you're restricting how they do certain things in the privacy of their own home, assuming they do it in their home. You get what I'm saying?
No, I get what you're saying, but so if most of your constituents say, Louis, we wanna have murder. We wanna have murder. We wanna be able to murder people. Do you
Murdering
follow your
so
morals and
much fun.
ethics but do you go with your morals and ethics and what
You
you
can't even
believe
do.
as a senator and do the right thing and vote it down? Or do you do what your constituents want and vote for it?
Oh, that's
I
an
believe
easy
it's
one. Yeah, you have to go by your. That's the whole point. That's going back on an hour ago when we were like, you can't have no closed doors meetings. If your constituent wants,
Yeah, but
you
it's
know,
still wrong.
purple paint on their houses,
I believe that's a twofold question.
yeah, you can't, because like if you go, yeah, your charge here. I'll start.
I'm going to answer this in the way that our founders set our government up. So our founders set the government up in such a way that it allows for public passion to subside, for public reason to come into play. So you may have a public passion to murder, but I believe public reason needs to be the overall trumping item that comes up. So if general public reason, if the rest of the country is not voting for murder, then I believe you as a congressman have the duty to vote against it. I think it has to come down to reasonability and ethicality as well. Does this have reasonable implications, and what are the ethical implications? because the
Yeah.
government is meant to govern us in a sense as well. We govern them, but they also govern us. It's a
Yeah.
twofold system. So if someone's shouting murder, the congressman's supposed to be like, no, we're not doing that here. Come on, knock it off and vote reasonably.
Yeah. That might be political suicide because if their constituency wants it and, said elected official votes against it, that's it. He's out the seat. And then I think we
Well,
should get
then,
like a scientist
so
involved too, because religiously we're considering it a murder.
David, you're mute.
The definition of murder is the taking of a life, right? And science says that life begins at conception. So technically, by science, if you have an abortion, you're murdering.
So I guess the bigger question overall would be, and I'm going to propose it in a different light. So the president of the United States swears an oath to the Constitution. The military swears an oath to the Constitution, then the president, then the officers appointed above him. If the president tells them to go kill the American public, should he follow the Constitution and believe that that person's a dictator and fight back against the government? Or should he follow the orders, he or she follow the orders of the president above him and go kill the American public? There would be, but the overall obligation is to the Constitution. And it's the same way as where the government is set up, and it's Britain, is the Congress people have an overall responsibility to do their jobs in a reasonable and ethical manner. Now, if that gets them voted out, I would rather be voted out than do something that's completely unreasonable and unethical. Any final thoughts on that?
No, I think we hit everything there.
I think so too.
Yeah, I mean, and the biggest point of this is to have a conversation, right? Sit down with someone who you disagree with and have a conversation, open dialogue. Even if you don't come up to 100%, same agreement, sometimes you gotta take a little, give a little.
Yeah, take the good with the bad. And first off, I want to thank you for joining us and having this nice, cordial conversation and giving us your different views from ours. David, anything else from you?
No, I think that's it, Josh.
All right. Well, thank you again. Thank you again, Louis, for joining us. And we'll see y'all later.